Hello and welcome. Today we're cracking open the Storyteller's Toolkit to explore the art of creative nonfiction. We're going to look at how true stories get their power not just from the facts, but from the actual form they take. So, let me ask you, you've got a story from your life you're just dying to tell, right? Maybe it's an event that completely changed you, a relationship that defined a chapter of your life, or just a single moment you can't shake. But where do you even start? How do you get that out of your head and onto the page? Well, let's get right into it. The real secret to telling a powerful true story isn't just about listing what happened. It's about how you tell it. And the structure you pick? It's everything. It's basically the engine that drives your entire narrative. So here's how we're going to unpack that toolkit today. We'll kick things off with what it even means to tell a true story creatively. Then we'll get into the foundational forms that every writer should have in their back pocket. From there, we'll look at piecing together more complex narratives and even borrowing structures from some pretty unexpected places. And then we'll wrap it up. All right, first up, telling true stories creatively. This is the absolute heart of creative nonfiction. It's where we use all these cool literary techniques to tell a factual story in a way that really grabs people. It's all about going beyond just the facts. When you get right down to it, you've really got two main paths you can take. You can go with a linear narrative where time is your guide. This happened, then that happened, then the next thing happened. Or you can take the nonlinear path, where you break free from that timeline and organize your story around, say, a central theme, an idea, or even a feeling. Okay, let's pop open that toolkit and pull out our first couple of tools. We're starting with the big ones, the foundational forms you're going to see most often, the memoir and the personal essay. So, what exactly is a memoir? First off, it's not your entire life story, not even close. It's more like a deep dive into one specific memory. The whole goal is to really dig into the relationship between the person you were back then and the person you are today. The source material has this fantastic example of writer Beth Ann Fennelly, who tells a story about surviving a blizzard as a kid. At the time, she thought her dad was this massive hero for getting the family to church in that storm. But now, looking back as a mother herself, she sees it as kind of reckless. You see that? That change in perspective, that's the engine of a good memoir. And that example just nails the voice of a memoir perfectly. It's not the kid in the blizzard telling the story, right? It's the adult looking back with all the wisdom and experience she has now. There's always this powerful link between the then and the now, and a really good reason for telling this exact story at this exact moment. Now, this is where people get tripped up a lot, so let's make it super clear. Think of it like this. A memoir zooms in on a past event to figure out what it means to you today. A personal essay, well, it can do that too, but it often zooms out. It uses a personal story from the past or the present to explore a much bigger idea or make a larger argument. And believe me, the personal essay is incredibly versatile. I mean, you could write about your relationship with your hometown as it changes over time, or you could use a small argument you had as a launchpad to explore your views on feminism. Or, hey, you could write a travel essay that's less about the sights you saw and more about how that journey fundamentally changed you. It's a really flexible, powerful form. Okay, so we've got the basics down. Now let's look at how writers can build something a little more complex, a little more intricate. This is where we start assembling a narrative with two really fascinating nonlinear forms, the fragmented and the breeded essay. What's so cool about the fragmented essay is that it feels a lot like how our brains actually work. I mean, we don't remember our lives in a perfect straight line, do we? We remember in flashes, in moments, in fragments. This form totally leans into that. It gives you a series of these little self-contained scenes that are all tied together by a theme. And when you put them all together, they create this really powerful, cumulative feeling. So how do you even build one? Well, you'd start with a central idea. Let's say kindness. Then you'd pull a bunch of different memories, your fragments, that all touch on that theme from different angles. You arrange them not in chronological order, but in an order that builds emotion. And a lot of the time, the very last fragment will jump to the present day, tying it all together and showing how those past moments made you who you are now. Next up, we've got the braided essay. Now, this is technically a type of fragmented essay, but it has this brilliant twist. It takes two, sometimes even three or more, storylines that seem completely unrelated, and then it weaves them together. You alternate between them, fragment by fragment, just like braiding strands of hair. A truly classic and devastatingly powerful example is Joanne Beard's essay, The Fourth State of Matter. Just listen to the different threads she braids together. She's going through a painful divorce. Her beloved old dog is dying. Her house is infested with squirrels she can't get rid of. And all of this is happening in the days leading up to a horrific mass shooting at the university where she works. Taken separately, each one is a story of loss, but woven together like this, they create this absolutely breathtaking portrait of grief from every possible angle. All right, time to pull out one of the most playful and honestly most inventive tools in the entire kit. Let's talk about borrowing a structure. Specifically, let's talk about something called the hermit crab essay. So why hermit crab? It's perfect. A hermit crab doesn't grow its own shell, right? It finds an empty one out in the world and moves in. And that's exactly what this essay does. It finds a pre-existing non-story form, like a recipe, a shopping list, a job application, a how-to guide, and it moves its own personal story right inside that structure. And this is just a perfect example of how it works. I mean, imagine telling the deeply personal, painful story of a marriage falling apart, but you write it as a recipe. The familiar structure of ingredients and instructions creates this incredible punch of irony and sadness. Serve cold. Wow. The form itself becomes a huge part of the storytelling. It's just so clever and so effective. Okay, let's pull it all together. We're in our final section, your storytelling toolkit. Because now that we've seen all these different shapes and forms, the real art is learning how to pick the right tool for the right story. So here's a little cheat sheet for you. If you really want to dig into how a past event shaped you, the memoir is your best friend. If you want to explore a single big theme from a bunch of different angles, the fragmented essay is perfect for building that emotional weight. If you want to connect ideas that seem totally separate, the braided essay will help you find those surprising links. And if you want to get really creative and tell a story in a totally unexpected way, the hermit crab essay is your secret weapon. And honestly, this is just scratching the surface. There are even more experimental forms out there. Things like the lyric essay, which brings in elements of poetry, or gonzo journalism, which pretty much throws the whole idea of objectivity out the window. The point is, the possibilities for telling true stories are just massive. But after all this talk about forms and structures and techniques, we have to remember that all of it, every single tool, exists to serve one vital thing: your one unique story. Your story is there. It's waiting to be told. The toolkit is wide open. So the only real question left is, which tool are you going to use?